It's my proud privilege today to talk about this wonderful book by Rajiv Malhotra ji, Sanskrit Non-Translatables. People may wonder that why so much fuss about a few words. You see, since translation is such a universal activity, books are getting translated from one language to another, one culture to another, and why such fuss? Because it has a history. You know, to subdue a country, you have to subvert its culture, and to subvert its culture you have to demean or undermine its knowledge. You have to change the character of its knowledge. उसका स्वरूप बदलने की आवश्यकता है, because only that way you will make people lose respect for their own thought, their own culture, and their own civilization. Now, Hindu civilization is not perhaps, in fact, it is the only civilization that has continued to be alive and kicking, continued to live in spite of all the history of disasters, invasions, and all that. And it has continued to live for almost 7,000 years. In fact, more than that, but we say 7,000 because we have the Sonauli excavations, we have the Mehrangarh, and so on. To subdue a country, you subvert its culture. And since our country, our civilization to is a knowledge centered civilization from day one. ज्ञान केंद्रित सभ्यता है, ज्ञान केंद्रित, और इस ज्ञान केंद्रित सभ्यता से, from this knowledge centered civilization, we have evolved a value oriented culture, एक मूल्य आधारित संस्कृति. And from this मूल्य value centered, value oriented culture, which is founded in the vast knowledge heritage of our country, we have developed a unity of consciousness in this country. चैतन्य की एक आत्म था. People think alike. Wherever you go in this country, they think and they behave and they act alike. They have the shared value. It has all come because of the vast, massive knowledge heritage. Imagine, Hindu civilization is from day one a knowledge-centered civilization. We have the world's first book, Rig Veda. We have the world's first poetry, first prose, first book of mathematics, first book of astronomy, first social sciences, first book of phonetics, first book of etymology, first book of meter, and you go on and on. We invented the numerals. We invented the decimal system. We worked out the value of pi. We worked out the movement of the planets. We worked out the distance from the earth to the sun. And all long back, long before the Western civilization or any other civilization had any idea. Now this Macaulay got it right. You want to rule these people, you have to subvert their culture. You have to make them lose their respect for their culture. And how do you do that? You do that by demeaning its knowledge, by altering the character of its knowledge as it is understood by the people, because in the Hindu civilization, knowledge is central. Knowledge is central. Knowledge is the root of everything. Jnana Marga is the supreme marga. And because as Krishna, I was almost saying Lord, but then Malhotra ji would have objected because Bhagavan is not Lord, and quite rightly. He's an avatara, a manifestation. And so Krishna tells Arjun, knowledge is a great there is no purifier like knowledge. Knowledge purifies more than the fire, more than the water, more than the fire. Knowledge is a purifier. It's such a different metaphor from the contemporary metaphor of knowledge is power. Knowledge is purifier. It purifies yourself. And of course, by purifying yourself, it gives you control over your own self. You don't gain knowledge. You don't become knowledgeable. आप ज्ञान का अर्जन इसलिए नहीं करते that you have to rule others, to exercise dominion over them, to exercise as in Deuteronomy Adam is asked to. You don't do that. You control yourself, because yourself is your enemy, yourself is your friend. There is no other outside. There is no other in the Hindu civilization. So this great knowledge tradition, knowledge centered, and knowledge is constituted in language. Knowledge is constituted in language. As our great Bhartrihari, 5th century says, Jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate. Jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate. All knowledge is constituted in language. All knowledge is constituted in language and in words. In words. He says, there is no thought, there is no cognition which is not accompanied by words. Not that you cannot eliminate the words in your meditation, which is the yoga philosophy, but in a normal human concourse, the normal human mind functioning, now there is no cognition which is not accompanied by a word. So knowledge is jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate, and this jagat, this innumerable world that we see around us, this jagat, ये भाषा का विकल्प है. It is a construct of language. It's a language. You see, language in the Western civilization, from the day Moses went up and asked God to write down his commandments, and God wrote with a hand of fire. Language is representational in the West. It represents a pre-existing reality. But language in India is constructivist. It constructs the reality. It constructs the reality for us. So language, that's why jnana is at the center of our civilization. And since jnana exists in language, language is as important to us as the great scholar Fitzgerald said, that language is central to the Indian civilization, just as geometry is central to the Greek civilization. So this whole knowledge existing in Sanskrit. So Sanskrit is important. In 1994, Justice Kuldeep Singh Ji, he delivered a judgment on Sanskrit, and he made a historic comment. He said, Sanskrit is not only a language. It is the vocabulary of our thought and culture. And it is this vocabulary which has created the culture of our people. In all Indian languages have a sizable portion of their vocabulary is tatsam, tadvav words of Sanskrit. We will not use the word borrow. It is not a case of borrowing. It's a case of one speech area breaking up into several speech areas. And just as the phonological changes take place, the words of that speech area, they take local forms. So language is the key. Language is the heart. As Stahl said, that language is central to the Indian mind, just as geometry was central to the Greek mind. And in the Rig Veda, in the 10th book, in the hymn of Dirgha Tamasa, there is a beautiful line, Gauri Mimaye Salilani Takshati. Language cuts forms in the ocean of reality. Language cuts form. The reality is an ocean. It's an ocean. You cannot cut forms. In geometry, you are taught to segment, to measure, to dissect, and then put together. That is the Greek view of terra firma as reality. But for us, terra cognita is the reality, not terra firma. And the forms we construct through language, through words. We name. To name is to know. We name and we know. We name and we know. So language is central. Now Sanskrit language, which is the medium of our intellectual heritage. It is there. Macaulay got it right. You subvert the culture. How do you do that? You change the आकार, ज्ञान का स्वरूप बदल दीजिए. Change the character of knowledge. How do you do that? You change the language. You change the language, that is one. So he said, we'll not teach them in their languages. And the second method is that you render the text. You render the text from this language, Sanskrit, into other languages, either in such a way that the concept changes. And the concept begins to look either illogical or foolish or repetitive or tautological. One of these are things are all counted in our tradition. People, by translating words like Adi Shankara, he said, Jagat Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Brahma Satya, and Mithya has been translated as illusion, unreal or false, and that has changed the attitude of the educated Indians to Adi Shankaracharya. But mind you, for Hindus, the world is not unreal. The world is not unreal at all. The world is very real. There is a real world out there. But when I predicate about it, I construct the world. Every individual constructs his world. Jagat bhasha ka vikalp hai. Mithya simply means, Mithya is from the Proto-Indo-European root. Mithna, which means to construct. My mother used to say when I was disturbed, "Oh, padya tu ki mithya? What have you constructed? And in the same way, when Shankar says, Jagat Mithya, this world is a construct, what we enumerate. No two human beings, not occupying the same space naturally, have the same perspective. The world is different for each one of us. And there are two worlds. One is the real world which is out there. The other is the world we predicate. And that is what Shankaracharya meant when he was talking of. Therefore, sir, Rajiv Malhotra ji, hats off to you. Thanks to you. You have picked on the crux, the words, the concepts. You want the concepts Indian concepts to retain their swaroopa. And how can they retain their swaroopa? They cannot be put in another language. Because when you put it in the other language, there can be either mischief or motivation or simply ignorance. And the result will be those who read those granthas in translation, they will lose respect for those texts. They will lose respect for ideas. They will lose respect for their culture. And they will lose respect for their civilization, as educated Indians these days have done. They have lost self-respect. They have lost respect for their own culture and tradition. We are all disaffiliated people. I hope, sir, your book will be on the table of every educated Indian, educated in quotes, and you will help the people to re-affiliate themselves with their own self. Thank you very much.